Hey everybody, today we are in Folkston, Georgia at Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. We're getting ready to take the boat tour out to see the beautiful Okefenokee. You ready?
Yeah.
We're always ready for this. This is one of our most favorite places in the world.
Swamp people.
Swamp people. These are the boats that take you out to actually see the Okefenokee. And we are on the 9:30 a.m. tour today. And it's Okefenokee Adventures that takes you out. It's a place that has an agreement with the National Wildlife Refuge or something like that.
All right.
Why couldn't we take the big tractor? I mean, for real.
Sorry?
We could have rode in comfort right there.
That thing's brand new. We're not even allowed to use it yet. That's going to be our wheelchair accessible tour boat because it's got a ramp that goes right up the front. It's a nice thing to have.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's good that
that's-
you've got something like that for.
That is great.
Hello, everybody. My name's Dan. I'm going to be your guide this morning. Welcome to the Okefenokee. How many folks have been here before? Almost everybody returnees. We got one first timer. Thanks so much for coming back and welcome for your first time. This is the Swanee Canal National Recreation Area entrance to the Okefenokee, the main entrance here on the east side. We're going to cruise out a few miles down the Swanee Canal to Chester Prairie and check out our beautiful swamp prairie. Lots blooming this season and it's a beautiful time of year to go take a look at it. And we'll see what we see along the way. You guys up front, you're going to be our eyes. I heard I have a notorious gator spotter up here.
Well,
That's what she calls me.
It's that our water is so warm right now, I should expect our gators. They're already out and active. Really, over the last couple of weeks, it's warmed up above 70 and they are comfortable basically all day. Don't need to come out and warm up in the morning like they do in the early spring and in our winter season. Today could be the day where we see them take that first flight.
There's one right there.
Yep, there it is.
The baby right there.
baby
Oh,
gator.
yeah, nice little alligator right here. Wait till you see it sunning a little bit, trying to warm up this early morning. It's a young alligator.
Yeah.
Get away from this tree, don't drag us into it. 2 days later, all the swallow-tailed kites are up here, and they're waiting for those dragonflies to emerge for them to migrate northward. So here we are out in the main body of the Swanee Canal. I'm turning us to the left really quick. If you look back over your shoulder, you can see where the visitor center is back there. And that's the original path of the Swanee Canal. Back behind us, past the visitor center and out and over land. And this canal was actually dug as an attempt to try to drain out the Okefenokee swamp. And this all started back in 1891. The state of Georgia really thought this was worthless land that they needed to develop into farmland. So they were trying to find anybody they could to take on that development project. And they sold all the land to a man named Captain Henry Jackson for 26 cents an acre, which even then was just like pennies on the dollar. They were just giving the land away because they thought it was just worthless. And so Captain Jackson started the Swanee Canal Company, and they started digging back behind us 5 miles to the St. Mary's River. And they thought that when they graded this canal out to the St. Mary's River, it would drain the water to the lower river valley. But it never worked. They dug this canal successfully over to the St. Mary's, but it was very sandy soil. The canal just kept collapsing in on itself, and they could never get it graded properly to actually drain water out of the Okefenokee. And so the project basically was a failure. And 2 years in, they realized this, and they started digging this canal we're following into the swamp. And they dug this canal we're following this morning as a logging access trail to this east side of the Okefenokee. And they were logging the cypress wood out of both sides. But they only did this for a couple years before going bankrupt. They spent so much money digging that canal to the St. Mary's, and they were never able to recoup any of those funds with the timber. It just never paid off the whole project. And in 1895, Captain Jackson actually died under the stress of it all. He was totally broke at that point because of how much money he'd sank into it. And a lot of people around here called it Jackson's Folly ever since. It was a really bad idea, and it was very poorly managed and executed. And you know, the bonus of all this, though, is that it's left us a beautiful water trail into the Okefenokee. This is a very, very shallow side of the swamp over here. The swamp prairie was never accessible by boat before this canal was put in. So the lasting legacy of this is the Swanee Canal National Recreation Area. They never successfully drained the swamp. Now it just helps thousands and thousands of people a year access the swamp. Ooh, we got an alligator. He'll inflate his lungs up to try to make his body look bigger and kind of, you know, scare off any rival males. A lot of it is just show. They don't really do a lot of fighting. Our male alligators do come to like crazy combat in rare instances, but typically they just kind of chase each other off with the larger sized males, you know, kind of taking the dominant position and the smaller ones deferring to the dominant larger males. Yeah, this is definitely territorial male behavior to be cruising around on the surface this visibly out in the canal next to us. But we are the proverbial larger male here in this 24-foot boat, so they tend to shy away once they see how big we are. One of the ways they say they can ballpark the size from eggs up out of the water, and they'll lay 30 to 80 eggs, fairly large clutch of eggs. And then they'll mound that nest with vegetation to help incubate the eggs and to protect them. So these nests can get quite large. They've learned to use our canal to help them hunt. They wait in these spots right on the edge of the canal and for the boat traffic to scare prey over to them. They're probably sitting there waiting for us to scare a fish over to them. Bless you. Tons of tree piling out right now. You might catch a little slip for southeast Georgia, which makes for the best weather, but also very little rain. It usually keeps the rainstorms away.
The lilies are beautiful.
I saw green heron flying up here on the left. Some bird activity early this morning. From that nest right back there on the cane pole trail out here hunting. These red-shouldered hawks love nesting right over the water out here.
It's a pretty good sized bird.
I always call them
They're kind of
chickens.
small compared to some other hawks, but they are nice big birds out here. And they are not picky eaters. There's a lot they love out here. Watching, oh, here's another egret flying right above the tree line, right towards the hawk. Catch a cottonmouth and take a bite from them without too much trouble.
Oh, praise the Lord. That's the only thing I'm scared of is
Yeah,
spiders.
remind me when we get back there to point out that nest location, because it's just about, you know, a couple hundred feet away from where you get off the boat, and you can walk right over and take a look at this.
I don't think I've ever seen this before.
Right here on the bow on the right, we've got a swamp tupelo, which is another one of our really well-known trees out here in the swamp. You can see its beautiful growth form, just as like the cypress, has a really bulbous, wide base to help keep it stable in this wet environment. And these tupelo trees are just about to start blooming. I bet there's actually some blossoms on this one already. And that tree is famous for the honey it produces. That tupelo honey is very, very light and sweet and very, very expensive. So our beekeepers around the swamp are trying to position their hives as close as they can to those tupelo trees right now.
You know the answer.
Yeah.
We were noticing all the beehives coming out.
Yeah, and thereafter, so there's tupelo blooming right now, and then gallberry as well. But year-round, this is a really, we're passing our 1 mile marker over there on the right. We're 1 mile out on the Orange Trail. And this Orange Trail actually takes you all the way over to Stephen C. Foster State Park. It goes about 18 miles over to the state park. Actually, I think 20 miles over to the state park there, but we never get this boat through. You can't really get a power boat of this size all the way across the swamp. Ooh, that looks like great campsites out here. There's a system of 10 of them. Most of them are just platforms built up off the swamp like a deck. All of them have a roof and a bathroom. They're pretty comfortable places to camp as long as it's not like 100 degrees and the bugs are terrible in the middle of the summer. Not recommended in the middle of July.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Floyd's Island is a big island in the middle of the swamp. It actually has an old hunting cabin on it. So if you get the permit to stay on Floyd's Island, you can stay in that hunting cabin. It's a fantastic place to come camp. Yeah, it's really nice having a room and a bathroom right there. It kind of takes a lot of the roughing it out of it.
Yeah.
You can see that oil slick look like I was talking
Yeah,
about. There's
yeah.
pollen on the surface of the water.
That's probably what made it.
Oh, I scared him off. I couldn't back him. Keep him from getting frightened. Keep a lookout for those big softshell turtles like that. They don't pass out. So not typical woodpecker behavior. We don't see them hammering on trees as much. Beautiful little bird that is very friendly and eats bugs all day long, so I really love it. Flycatchers are great.
Yeah.
Here in the swamp was purchased by the Hebbard Cypress Company. And it was logged very heavily through the early 1900s for the cypress wood, and the Hebbard Company ran rail lines all the way across the swamp out here. Really major operation over on Billy's Island near Stephen C. Foster. They had a town of 600 people on that island with a movie theater and a bowling alley, a full working town out here in the swamp. You can see this sign, we're entering the National Wilderness Area here in just a second. But by the Great Depression, the economics of it had really changed, and they'd taken all the choice timber by then. So in 1927, with the onset of the Great Depression, they abandoned all their logging operations out here and abandoned their town on Billy's Island. And there was a really growing conservation movement by that time, and they were really trying to get the government to step in and conserve the Okefenokee. And really under the direction of President Teddy Roosevelt, the government stepped in and finally bought all the land in 1937 and established the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. And you just saw that sign for the wilderness area. In 1967, Congress passed the Wilderness Act and the wilderness area was established. And so in the greater National Wildlife Refuge, we have a lot of ongoing habitat management projects like prescribed burns and managing for the endangered red cockaded woodpecker. But out here in the wilderness area, the swamp is left to develop on its own. There's no really habitat management. The only thing we do out here is come in and cut these water trails open and make sure people can keep accessing it. Most of the water trails in the wilderness area are restricted to only canoes and kayaks. We've only got 25 or 30 miles or so that we can drive day for the lunch and hang out on the platform, but then at night it's just for the folks who have a permit. See this really gorgeous section of Spanish moss through here. This really dense section of forest was spared from that 2007 fire. You saw we just kind of came up right up on this big dense forest section. This was all spared by a pop-up rain shower that happened in the middle of that fire. Right as it was about to burn into this area, the rain started and saved this section of forest. And so it kind of gives you a look at what the canal was like before those big fires hit back in 2007 and 2011. You can see all this Spanish moss through here, one of our most iconic species down here in the southeast. And the Spanish moss isn't a moss at all, it's an epiphyte, so an air plant. And it's not a parasite of the trees it grows on, it's just freely hanging from the branches and growing, getting all its energy from the sun. It's totally photosynthetic plant, which it doesn't even look green. You can't even see the chlorophyll in there. It's covered with these really fine silver scales that help protect it from moisture and humidity loss when it gets really hot and sunny down here. A lot of interesting uses for the Spanish moss over the years, and one of my favorite stories about the Spanish moss is it was the cause of the first car recall in world history. Henry Ford wintered over on Jekyll Island when it was a millionaires club back in the early 1900s, and he thought it'd be a great idea to use a lot of these southern forest products. He made a lot of the steering wheels and wood accents in the cars out of cypress wood, and he shipped back tons of this Spanish moss to stuff it. Ooh, big alligator right there.
Oh, I see.
So he stuffed the seats of the early Model Ts with Spanish moss, and they had to recall the cars because of insect infestations to the calves. This is a big alligator right here.
Yeah.
Good look at that tail, just gracefully swimming.
7 or 8
He's what, like
This one's
10?
more like the 8, almost 9 foot range.
Ooh, he
Down
went
Down like a
under.
submarine. They've actually, submarine designers have said to have really closely studied how alligators balance themselves and use air to control their buoyancy in the water. They're really good at sitting at a particular point in the water column and choosing where they are. Here's our big territorial male sitting over the mile marker 2 sign.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, we're coming back this way. I'll come back out and see if he's still sitting there. That guy just looks big right now with his
Yeah.
posture, with his tail popped out of the water like that.
Big. What do they get up to? About 15 feet, the biggest?
Here in the Okefenokee, we don't see them get much beyond 13 feet. We got pretty shallow water here, and it kind of limits their size. Our largest alligators are over by the sill, which is a flood control device they build at the base of the Swanee River.
Yeah.
To kind of dams it up and makes it a little deeper. We don't really see them get much beyond 12 and 13 feet out here. And our females top out at about 9 feet. So we do see a 10+ foot alligator here. It's definitely a male. The biggest one ever recorded, they killed one that was 20 feet long and over a ton. But that was back when their habitat was much bigger and broader. And they just don't tend to get that big at all anymore. Now, and out into the wild swamp prairie, the really famous environment the Okefenokee is known for. We've already got our white water lilies opening for the day. These white water lilies you see blooming actually close up all night, but it's sunny enough it's already popping them open this morning. Sometimes if it's not as sunny, we don't see them open up until the middle of the afternoon. See this beautiful plant sticking up off the water out here is golden club, and over on the left you can see some of the golden club blossoms. It's just about at the end of its blossom cycle. It's the yellow stalk that's standing straight up off the water with the red stem in it. And that's actually an edible flower stalk. You can eat that golden club stem. Kind of spicy, kind of ochre-like flavor to it. If you deep fry it, it's a lot like fried okra, and that's really good. So that's about the end of the blossom cycle for this golden club. You can see seed heads on the left that have fallen into the water. As it sets seed, it just drops its seeds right into the water and lines the bottom of it out here. So it's our leaves and our cypress needles and all this aquatic vegetation as it dies and falls in. And that peat forms very, very thick layers on the bottom of the swamp. Here in the prairie, it's probably only about 5 feet of water in the water channel, and it gets very, very shallow on the sides, down to a foot or less even. Most of the swamp prairie out here is only about 6 to 8 inches of water, very, very shallow, except for our boat channels. Underneath that can be 10 to 15 feet of accumulated peat, even more like 20 feet in some areas where it's very, very thick. And that peat lines the bottom and decomposes very, very slowly. As it does rot, it fills up with methane, and big sections of the peat pop up off the bottom and float to the surface and form floating islands out here. And over on the left, we can see one of these floating islands. This island is not connected to the bottom of the swamp. It's flowing around in the wind, floating along on its own. The wind's kind of blown it into this location, and it's hung out there for a few weeks. You can see that beautiful plant community that's popped up off it. Once the peat rises to the surface and exposed to oxygen, all the seeds that are trapped in that peat start germinating. We get a big plant community that pops up on this floating island. So there's kind of a nicely developed one over on the left we're just passing. And then right in front of us, one of these little islands is newer, and it only has grasses on it right there. And then if you look off the bow to the right, you see a little island that's got some tree growth going all the way through it. And once those little cypress trees root on it, they will send their roots through the bottom of the island and anchor it into the bottom of the swamp. And then it becomes kind of a more permanent island location. And remarkably, if you look around us here in Chester Prairie, there is no dry land at all. We don't have any soil out here supporting this growth. it's only these peat islands in different stages of maturity. So if you look out, you know, past this little one on the right to this mature forest section over there, that's just a fully mature peat island that's grown to that size. They just keep growing outward as they accumulate more plants and more organic material. If you see this little islands on the left, you can kind of see the pattern in which they grow out. This one up here next to us, it's got, you know, mature trees in the middle, and then a big ring of smaller trees and grasses around the outside. It's just kind of growing outward in a concentric circle. And that's the natural succession of the prairie. The plant life just wants to fill in this prairie section. It gets so much peat accumulated, and then that peat accumulates into these islands that grow up to a full forest. And this would just keep going until this whole section of Chester Prairie just filled in with the cypresses in the middle of it there. Those yellow blooms you see are the carnivorous pitcher plant. That's an insect collecting plant. And actually, if this island up here is still in the same spot, I'll pull over and show you some of those pitcher plants. That's the island I was going for. It hasn't moved yet.
It's pretty.
You can see this little one right to our right has some beautiful little arrowhead flowers popping off of those white flowers. And this one I'm pulling up to is a beautiful little bird.
Ones that kind of look like they got a head that goes over. Are those
Yeah, right. In there. And so the hooded top, it's got little nectary right at the entrance. It releases nectar to help attract insects in. And then once they crawl inside, it's got downward facing hairs that help to trap them in there. And the hooded top helps to stop them from seeing their exit, so they can't see the light out the top of it. It also stops rainwater from diluting that enzyme-filled liquid. And on the back of it, you'll see like little white patches, like little tiny white spots. That's what they call the window. It's actually letting light in the back of the plant where the insect can't escape. So the insects will keep trying to crawl to the light and eventually just get exhausted and fall in and get digested in there. And especially nitrogen and phosphorus is what they're digesting them for, which they can't get very readily from the peat. And so they put off a new like tube. And yeah, this big pretty yellow blossom is a nice spring bloomer. You can see right over here too some more blossoms that are about to open. This little ball is the bud. And so there's a tiny little flower next to it there, a yellow flower on it. And that yellow flower is one of our bladderworts, and that's a really interesting species of carnivorous plant. We actually have 8 or 9 different bladderworts out here on the swamp, and they all make little tiny underwater bladders that are about the head of a pin, very, very small. And the plant's vascular system pumps those bladders full of air, and it makes a pressure trap with the water around it. So you can see the neat little plant communities that these islands form, and they'll just float along like this for years even before they accumulate enough growth to you know, anchor themselves into the bottom. You can see that's got a nice little bush on it, but it's going to be a long time before it gets any tree growth onto it. Got my handy push pole here for the shallow water. What?
No, that was a push-me pole. Never mind.
Oh.
I could take me a nap out here. You hear me?
Well, I'm going to use this little island as my demonstration until it floats away and disappears. That's kind of the nature of these things. I'll come out here on a tour in a couple days and it'll just be gone with the wind.
Yeah. this area that much?
Oh, they do, and actually we're coming up on a spot where they might be perched up on this fresh island in front of us. We're coming up on a big fresh peat island. They love to climb up onto these fresh islands. They collect a lot of solar energy and have a nice, easy spot for them to escape in all directions. The alligators, when they're in their like basking posture, just aren't going to do anything. And clearly that great blue heron knew it. He was standing right next to him without worrying. Okay, there's that heron flying back over behind us on the left. So yeah, we've got a couple alligators basking on this very fresh peat island. This is one of those peat islands that's just popped up off the bottom and floated to the surface. Still very, very little plant life accumulated on it so far. This one's only been up off the bottom of the swamp for about a month now. So as the summer progresses, we're going to see this fill up with a garden about waist high of leaves or of grasses and flowers, and it'll kind of move on in its succession from there.
That's a pretty good sized gator right there.
So if there's both of these hanging out in one spot, this is likely a male and a female. I'm thinking this next one forward is larger in size. That's likely the male, and this is the female we're passing right here.
I ain't getting near you, baby, because I think you
how
can
big
take
is that
me.
one? That's like a,
Oh, he's growling too.
He's as fat as he is long too.
yeah, he's at least a 10 foot, maybe longer.
Oh, wow.
Yawning for us. That's literally all it's doing. That's not like an aggressive display. It's just yawning.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Oh, you hear him.
It's just a roar. Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Oh, and he just closes his eyes all casually.
Yeah.
You can tell that wasn't like an aggressive thing he was doing. He literally was just yawning. Well, I'm getting blown in the wind with him, so I'm gonna keep moving. And we're turning around right up here, so I'll just turn around and bring us another drag back by. Get a look at these guys.
That's because you know it's dog country up here.
Yeah, we did this tour in November and we didn't see much for gators.
Yeah. It can really depend. Sometimes in the winter you see a lot of them because they're out of the water basking, but it just depends on the weather and our water temperatures and the conditions. Honestly, we're getting lucky today with a lot of sightings.
Yeah.
Sometimes on a warm morning like this, they're just all in the water. They're not out basking because our water temperature right now is almost as warm as the air is. So we're lucky we're getting such great views this morning.
We used to see more.
Tried to play it cool. It didn't like struggle to get out. Its legs collapsed and it just sunk in up to its body, and then it just froze. It's like, okay, well I guess I'm hanging out right here. I got some great pictures of it. It was so funny. It looked pretty awkward though, and it looked like it didn't want to like struggle. He was just trying to play it cool.
If we get close, maybe we can catch it and throw it in the boat.
Oh no, you won't.
This guy here, as long as he is, it just looks heavier than that. I mean, I'm betting that this is likely a 300-pound alligator.
I'll get the tail. You get the head. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, famously, they have incredible bite force, but if you pin their mouth shut, they can't reopen it because they've got very little strength to open their jaw.
Yeah.
That's the important part. Get on top of that mouth.
Yeah, I think.
But then, you know, while you're worried about getting bitten, one of the most dangerous things about an alligator is its tail. And they can whip you with that tail so violently in space. Their predatory attacks are insanely rare, like black bears around here. It's just so randomly that alligators actually go after people as prey. Typically, alligator bites and injuries are because people are trying to catch alligators.
Yeah.
Same is true of our venomous snakes. Everybody worries about venomous snakes around here. 95% of our venomous snake bites are to a male between the ages of 14 and 35 who's bitten on the hand. It literally tells the whole story right there. Don't try to pick them up and they're not going to bite you. They're actually overheating and want to cool off again. So sometimes they climb out of the water and pop their mouth open with that big throat pouch hanging low, and all the veins and vessels in that help to dissipate heat. Alright, we're going to do another pass and then head on out. I could stay out here for hours with you guys, but we got to be back in 90 minutes.
Now you said they're probably a mated pair. Would she put a nest on this island, or would she go somewhere else?
She
Hey,
could,
buddy.
but it's likely that it'd be a little more hidden. She'll recognize that this isn't the boat channel and
Right.
likely not put her nest right here.
He's what? How many years old? You figure? 10.
That guy is 10 at least.
Yeah.
They grow for the first years of their life about a foot a year when they're young and growing quickly. But then after they reach 5 feet and 5 years old, their growth really slows to where they only grow a couple inches a year, very much at
Finna
all.
get lucky.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. I was actually looking at that. It could just be something sitting on the
Like
surface.
vegetation
Yeah, right.
or something?
I've got my binoculars right here. Let's see if I can see that. That's got to be the case that this is a male and a female. Because a big male like that would chase off another male of that size in an instant.
Is his tail cut off, or is it just me looking like I can't see?
I think it's just round around back.
Dragonflies are out.
It is. It's a beautiful day.
Seeing a lot of great blue herons this morning. That's nice. It's our largest heron species, but the sandhill crane out here is even bigger than that. We don't see much of them, but we hear them bugling across the swamp all the time. Entrance road, right in the middle of the road. Got some great pictures of it.
We saw the black squirrel too.
Yeah.
One of those big fox squirrels, the Shermans.
Beautiful.
They look like monkeys. They're so big.
Yes, they do.
So there's a type of a subspecies of fox squirrel called the Sherman's fox squirrel that's like unique to the longleaf pine savanna. So they only live in areas of longleaf pines that are frequently burned because they want the undergrowth cleared out and they want big open mature forest. And they're so big. The first time I saw one, I literally was like, "What is that? A monkey? That's not a squirrel." Like, gigantic. They've got like a black chest, really dark in color. Beautiful animals.
And then like right here is like a lighter color.
They're
It's
not, yeah, they
beautiful.
look different than any other squirrel you'll see. In Okefenokee Adventures, we have a stuffed one that's really, really pretty. Yeah, right. All our islands to the east. And I love the Springs area of Florida just to the south. And one of the coolest things about the Okefenokee is how little traveled it is. It's so empty relative to our other areas surrounding it. So I love being out here so close to all these areas I love. It's such an incredible environment. We're working hard to get more people out here to Okefenokee. Right now, kind of in the midst of a 5-year project to get Okefenokee added to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And it's certainly worthy of that honor, but it's going to take some work to get it done. And it's the kind of thing that can really help jumpstart tourism around here. There aren't that many. Oh yeah, there's that big guy still in the same spot. He doesn't look so big anymore after that last
No.
one. That one looks longer though. If you can see how their body types are all
Yeah.
different. That last one we saw was not so gigantically long, but boy was it fat.
Yeah.
And that one over there is very, very long, but a little more slender. And they all are, they're just like us. They all have different body types.
I tell you, if you ever get a chance to go into Fernandina, do the boat tour there.
Oh, I've never done. I didn't know they had a tour.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It takes you like right on the edge of Cumberland Island. It gives you all the history.
Oh,
like
neat.
the fort. The fort has never had a cannon fired from it, and most people think it was an active fort.
Right. Yeah. And
But
it
it
was just
wasn't.
kind of there.
And it's half built by, you'll see the different colored bricks,
Uh-huh.
and half of it was built by the Southerners, and half of it was built by Yankees.
Oh, neat.
So it's,
Yeah,
Is that
such
Basking?
interesting history around
that's the
here.
one at Fort Clinch.
Fort Clinch.
Yeah.
So
It's
if
funny.
you've
I'm
never
always on
been-
Cumberland looking at it from across the water.
Yes. If you've never been on that tour, it's really.
Oh, I should have to do that.
But only go if Captain. What
Good morning. How you guys
Good
doing?
morning.
Have a pleasant night. Oh wow, that's awesome. They've been out and about. We just saw some huge ones out on the prairie. Well, have a good paddle back.
Yeah.
guides who were out at Cedar Hammock last night with a backcountry group guiding them. They got some fantastic weather.
There's one.
I have the permit for Cedar Hammock. Which Cedar?
That's a gator.
Oh yeah, back. Oh yeah. I see its back swimming away from us there. Like I was saying, using the sides of the canal to hunt. Yeah, I've got a permit for that Cedar Hammock tomorrow night, so I'm gonna go out there and camp all by myself. So quiet out there.
That is a big gator up there.
That's a gator down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just taking it easy.
He's saying, "Oh, she's coming back."
Yeah.
Like a
I
roller.
see this turtle I'm backing up on over here.
See the turtle?
The board is soft.
That's a big one.
Right on the edge. You can see its shell and its head sticking out of the water. One of our biggest turtle species right behind the snapping turtle. There it is right there. You can see its eyes and its nose sticking out of the water. It's got a really interesting looking head. It's got like a long snorkel tube nose and long extended eye stalks, and it takes the posture just like the alligators of like ambush hunter. It's just got the nose and the eyes sticking up out of the water. Very large, leathery, soft shell. They're very flexible, unlike other like hard-shelled turtles. They have a very, very nasty bite. You do not want to handle these turtles. They will take your finger off if you're not careful, just like our big snapping turtles.
Now, are those ones that you will see coming out of the water over yonder on the drive?
Yeah. They come out of their water. They'll lay eggs and it moves them. Yeah, just have to pay your entrance fee, and there's like a sign in and out right at the boat ramp. There's no additional charge to launch your boats or anything like that. Okay. And then it's just you have to be on here. And there's only 10 sites, so they fill up quick.
There's one right there.
Oh yeah, down here.
So neat to see them just like so quietly disappear like that. And gone. Just makes you think how many we drive over that we never see.
Yeah.
Marsh. And during the Pleistocene, about 250,000 years ago, oh, this kingbird over here is like doing loops trying to catch that bug, and he did. He got a big moth or something. You can see he's got it there. Good job. Oh, it's like a cicada. Oh, that's a big meal. He's going to bite the wings off, and down it goes.
Yeah.
So the Okefenokee was formed as a salt marsh about 250,000 years ago during the Pleistocene. And at that point, the Earth's climate was so warm, there was no polar sea ice. It was all melted, no glaciers on Earth. So the sea level was 120 feet higher than where it is today. And so that put the coastline right up here by the Okefenokee. And actually, if you can see this mature pine forest in the distance, especially stretching off down to the right, that marks a remnant barrier island that we call Trail Ridge that was holding back this big salt marsh. So back when the sea level was this high, Trail Ridge is a 130-mile-long barrier island. Very, very skinny, just 2 to 4 miles wide, all created by wave action on the coastline. Oh yeah, there's another big soft shell right there. And so this whole environment then was like the Outer Banks of North Carolina is now. A very long, skinny sand barrier island holding back a big saltwater marsh behind it. And as sea level receded to its current spot, basically this big depression had been carved out by the saltwater marsh. And then as that saltwater receded, it was basically filled in with fresh water behind it. And the remnants of this island are still right in front of us today. And if you're driving Swamp Island Drive, you're going to be driving along Trail Ridge there. And if you're heading out today, you're going to drive up and over the remnants of this barrier island. You'll go 15 feet in elevation up out of our parking lot. And then really quickly, you start going back down the other side. And you're going off that old beach and out to sea. And if you just drove over to the coast today, straight over to Jekyll Island or Cumberland Island, you'd pass over 4 other remnant barrier islands that were all created as the sea level receded out to its current spot. And you can kind of notice these all by the rise you go up. You'll go up in elevation 10 feet and then back down the other side, and you've gone up and over one of those barrier
There's
islands.
another one.
Yeah.
I wish you would have kept count, because it's been a good gator morning.
My husband just watched a documentary on that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's all relatively very recently in Earth's history. 250,000 years ago, it's kind of the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And so all that history is still right in front of us. We've got a lot of islands out here in the swamp, Billy's Island and Floyd's Island. All those islands are huge sandbars that are left from that salt marsh. We haven't had any water movement since that could have made islands or destroyed them or anything. All these big islands are still where the sea level left them 250,000 years ago.
Charlie used to.
Hang out close to our fishing boats.
Yeah.
And when somebody hooks the fish, they rush in, try to steal it right off the line. You see them trailing bobbers and fishing gear pretty frequently because of how often they try to steal fishing boats and steal fish off people's lines. booked us for a 4-hour extended tour, so with some advance notice, you can book out one of these boats for a half day. I think it's typically like $150 per person, but if you get 4 or more, the price goes down. Great way to get further out into the swamp and explore.
She's got a blog if y'all
And she made a video of Gilmore today.
About what?
Gilmore.
Oh, neat. Oh, that place is just amazing.
Just go to our channel
Oh, I will.
and subscribe, and you will see everything what we are doing.
Well, thanks for coming to the Okefenokee. This is a key part of traveling the Southeast.
they come
That's
here
true, because we
twice a
love,
year.
we come here more than 2 times a year.
You know it.
That's
This
one of our
is such
most
a special
favorite places.
environment. It's the largest intact blackwater swamp here in North America. Really, really so important for wildlife, and unlike a lot of environments left in the world. I'm from up in Ohio originally, and we had the Great Black Swamp up there. It was rival to Okefenokee in size, was a spectacular birding area, and they successfully drained out every last bit of the Great Black Swamp. It does not exist on the earth at all anymore. And it has thrown bird nesting up there into a tizzy. A lot of bird populations collapsed with the loss of the Great Black Swamp because it was such an important nesting stopover site. Oh yeah, there's one of those big. Oh, there's another one right back
There's
behind
two
it.
right there.
A couple of those big soft shells right here.
That must have been what we
Well, man,
saw
if we had a
there.
good morning for it. So much
Yeah.
going on out there.
Well, you can count on that blog of how many
Alligators.
we saw. And what's your name?
I'm Dan.
Dan?
That's Dan the man.
Dan the
Jones.
man.
Yeah. So right back over our shoulders here is the cane pole trail. You can see the sign at the entrance of it. And the red-shouldered hawk nest is high in a tree. Oh, excuse me, high in a tree about 20 feet down. As we're coming around here, you'll see it back here.
So this is the brochure about Okefenokee Adventures, and I have to highly recommend this. We've been coming here for years, and they always do an awesome job. So this is lunch. I got the cheeseburger and onion rings and the sweet tea. And Mom got the cheeseburger and french fries and the half and half tea. So this is my favorite little pond here, and the alligator was just down there, and apparently this one did not want to be on YouTube, so he just went in the opposite direction. There is something back there. I think that's either a turtle or maybe an alligator at the back. I don't know if you can see it very well. I don't know. I'd have to get my long lens out on the real camera to see that. Yeah, his mom was just saying the food was very good at the restaurant today. So if you're ever here, I highly suggest eating in there. It just saves you a lot of time. Food's cooked on site. It's really, really good. And they cook it as you order it. It's not like it's just sitting back there waiting for somebody to come get it. So this back here leads you to the Chester Island homestead, which is a productive way of living. The earth has music for those who listen. That is true, because all you hear is birds. And that over there is the deer stand trail. It's only a half mile, but we're not doing that. We're going to see the house. So this is a home in the swamp. They have a chicken coop, smokehouse, slurp shed, hollow leg, log well, corn crib, storage shed, and a house. And the yard to this day is still how it was back whenever the Chesters lived here. It must have been to hold the gate in place or something. This is dedicated to the Chester family in honor of the character and lifestyle of all settlers of the Okefenokee. Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, United States Department of the Interior, Fish and Wildlife Service in 1977. So, I was hoping that it was going to be open today, but obviously it is not. So we can just imagine that we're going back in time, and we can imagine that we were the Chessers. So why would the dirt have been made out of sand? Do you know?
It was actually beachland back then.
Well,
That's how it became pearly white.
according to what it says on the internet, it's so the snakes could be seen if they were crawling across the ground.
Don't worry, there were snakes back then.
I'm gonna hop in for a second. I just realized whenever I was watching that piece of the video, it said, do you know why the dirt is made of the sand? I meant to say, do you know why the yard is made of dirt, even though it looks sandy? So anyway, that's what it is. Why is the yard made of dirt, not why is the dirt made of sand? It's just one of those Donna sayings that I have, getting stuff all warped up sometimes. But anyway, we'll continue on. So I'll have to try another trip back whenever the house is actually open. And I thought I had read somewhere that it was open on the weekends, but obviously that was not true. Or it's only certain weekends. This appears the corn crib. And it says, please keep off ladder. Not a problem with me.
That corn chill here.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. And here's one of the wagons. I guess this might be for the mules, maybe.
This is meat grinder here.
And here's another wagon.
A meat grinder.
Mom says that right there is a meat grinder.
They don't have it attached to the handle. But each one of those has attachment to all that.
So later on I'll touch base with this more, but I had read online that the original house only had so many rooms and then they had to build onto it. So this right here on the side has to be where they built onto it, because you can see, like, it looks like where the room was added from the original house. And that's pretty cool how it's in those slats of wood going down on the roof like that. And this right here appears to be a grapevine. That lizard almost scared me. It says that over there's the homestead trail. It's only a half a mile. I'm guessing this is a sugar cane.
Then back there in the back, inside your kitchen, y'all cook. And then your home came behind that.
That's pretty cool. pool right there. Oh, a smokehouse. Because Marty over here. I'll just come back to that. So that was the smokehouse right there. And that's where they would put all their hams and everything up for the year. And this was the storage shed. That right there, that's like an old school lock there. I've seen those before in my life. So this is pretty cool. You can see this is where they put all their canning goods right here. So if you look right there, that's got to be the syrup they make in those jars. And that's the vegetables on this side. I don't see anything with that one. And that's the kitchen right there. We have a nice view of that chicken if nothing else. This is nice right here. This is an old school clothesline. Some kind of dead bug there. I love that even the clothespins are still on there. This is the chicken yard and coop. And back here is the hog pen. And that's the syrup shed there. We've actually been here whenever they've been boiling the syrup. It's quite fascinating. So this tells about the sweet life. It says life in the Okefenokee swamp during the 19th and early of 20th century was not always easy, but with the help of fresh cane syrup, it was often sweet. I just said they had a syrup social. Come October and November, when the weather cooled and crops had been harvested, neighbors gathered for cane grinding. The sound of laughter, tall tales, and children at play mixed with a clop of the mule, creak of the mill, and snap of the cane. Syrup making was a social event. So they actually still do that today whenever they have the Pioneer Day. Lots of fun. pretty old tree right there. So they don't actually have it hooked up today, but usually they have this long old bar right here that is attached to this machine up here, and they just go around and around in circles whenever they're grinding the sugar cane. And that right there is the grindstone, but it actually looks like it's broke.
It's broke.
Yeah.
One piece on one side, one on the other side.
Yeah, because usually it's a whole piece. And this is the hollow log well. That would be the pulley system right there. And it doesn't go down too far, but I'm pretty sure it's probably been filled in over the years. And this is the back porch. And the sign clearly says, "Do not drink the water." Oh, there's another clothesline. It's pretty cool. And there's a bathtub. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that's the original. It's even got the claw feet in it. And there's me once again. I do have an older video where I'm doing the same exact thing. So hi again. And I have changed hats since the beginning of the video. Now I got the Okefenokee Adventures one on. And that right there, that's like an old pie safe right there. My grandma had a couple of them. Oh, that's pretty cool over there in the corner. So whenever you're looking at the tub from this direction, you can tell it's got to be 100% the original, because look at all the rust on it. I think I've been sitting there for almost 100 years now and look like that. So this coming up is the Chester Island Boardwalk. It's 82 degrees today already, so we're not going to do that. And we're kind of pressed for time too. But I do have a video about that already if you'd like to look at it and see what it's all about. It's a lot of fun. Highly suggest walking back there. Well, typically once you get back to this section, which is like a huge ditch, you'll start seeing alligators laying out there sunning themselves. That's a log. I was about to get excited.
First, before you so much, I knew you were going to it's time to stop.
And all these water lilies are just so beautiful this year. They're really stunning. I don't think they were quite like that last year. There's a turtle down there.
They must have been
Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. There he is. I see him.
there. Is it big?
Yeah, it's pretty big. Might be the same one we saw yesterday. Hold on. Oh, he's moving. He's moving. Come on and move. Just don't come up here. Oh, that's so cool. I think that's good. So they do have plenty of picnic areas out here if you want to have a picnic out here. And it looks like they also have the obstacle course like they had yesterday at Banks Lake. And this out here that shows the front side of the Okefenokee Adventures, and then you also have the Richard S. Bolt Visitor Center over there. If you go in there, they really have a nice movie that tells you the history about the Okefenokee. And this is on the side of the Richard S. Bolt Visitor Center, and I think it's just so beautiful because it represents everything that the Okefenokee is about. And that shows who the artwork was by. So, excellent job.
Well, hello, folks. I'm glad you could drop by. I understand you're interested in hearing about some of the people who live in the Okefenokee. And you gather around and I'll tell you what I know about it. First people who lived here were the Native Americans. The experts that study these things tell us they were here as early as 4,000 years ago. It wasn't just one group of people who lived here. Several tribes of different cultures relied on the Okefenokee at different times, mostly roaming the rim of the swamp. Now, the swamp provided what they needed to survive. Plenty of wildlife, dirt for farming, and of course, water for getting around. Signs that they were here had been found in the ground, pieces of pottery and such, above the ground in burial mounds on remote swamp islands. In fact, historians can identify which cultures lived here and when by studying the pieces of pottery they left behind. And some of the pottery found here is the oldest in North America. Now, by the time the explorers got here from Europe about 500 years ago, a big tribal group called Timucuans had villages all over South Georgia and North Florida. Most people say I'm a big fella, but I've heard that some of these folks were over 7 feet tall. Now, that could be a big tall tale, I guess. Our Frenchmen back then said they were of goodly stature, mighty fair, and as well shapen as any people in all the world. So I guess they were tall and strong and good looking. These folks left us more than pottery and burial mounds. They left us the name of this great place. The name Okefenokee itself is probably just our way of saying the name the Creek tribe gave this place, Okefenokee. That means land of the trembling earth. And if you've been out in that swamp, then you certainly know why. I'm glad to see you folks here today. If you'd visited the Okefenokee 100 years ago, you'd have met other homesteaders like me making their homes here in the swamp. Swampers, as they're sometimes called, settled on the pine-covered islands and upland edge of the swamp throughout the last 2 centuries. Now, just like the Native Americans before them, these homesteaders found that the swamp provided just about everything they needed to survive. They built sturdy cabins of pine poles and cypress and raised their cattle and hogs in the piney woods. They hunted bear, deer, squirrel, rabbit, turkey, ducks, and other game. And in the sandy soil, they grew corn, sweet potatoes, sugar cane, peanuts, peaches, pecans and tomatoes and other garden crops. And they kept bees for honey. Now, you may find diagonal cuts on some trees in and around the Okefenokee, where folks harvested the sap of pine trees for naval storage or turpentine. It's used for everything from a medicinal salve to ink. Swampers were self-reliant, hardy folk with a strong sense of independence. Living so far from the nearest town, they had to work hard to survive. They also had to entertain themselves. They told stories, sang, played music, and invented games. Folks lived out here long before telephones were common in every home, so they had to find a way to communicate across long distances. Swamp hollering became a way of driving the cows home, announcing your arrival for supper, or just letting folks know where you were. The flat terrain and openness of the Okefenokee carried sound for quite a ways, sometimes 1 or 2 miles. Because of the size of the Okefenokee and the lack of phone and radio towers in the swamp, hollering is still probably one of the most reliable ways to communicate.
So this is the kiosk at Okefenokee, and this says that obviously the alligator is the king of the swamp. And that's Swanee Canal recreation area. And the lonely pine forest. This is on the wild side. And it says, the Wilderness Act of 1964. Wilderness is an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. This shows some of the different places in Georgia that are national wildlife refuges. Okay, this is all the brochures that they have here that you can pick up about Okefenokee. They got the one that tells about the National Wildlife Refuge, the Swamp Island Drive, the Chester Island Homestead, and then there's a cute little activity book for kids. But I'm a child at heart, so I got it for myself. And also the little pencil that you can do whenever you're doing the fun thing in that activity book. Okay, so now we're gonna wrap it up. And this is by far one of our most favorite places in the world. We come here all the time. We do truly love it. I put my shades back on. That sun is bright. Let me get some tea too. Just came out of the hot sun. It's up 84 degrees now. But anyway, this is the information about Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, and this information came from fws.gov and also wikipedia.com. So it's located in Folkston, Georgia. It conserves the unique qualities of the Okefenokee Swamp and its headwaters of the Swanee and St. Mary's rivers. It provides a refuge for threatened and endangered species. It is world renowned for its amphibian population that are bioindicators of global health. Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge has 353,981 acres of national wilderness area within the refuge boundaries, which was designated in 1974. Okefenokee is on the tentative list to become a World Heritage Site because of its global significance. And I think you might hear him touch about that on the tour that we took today. That was by far the most informative tour guide we've ever had here. We have taken a lot of tours, probably at least what, 10 or more over the years?
Probably more than that.
Yes, oh my God, we love the boat tours. But if Dan is watching this, you were a very good tour guide. Got to give the shout out Okefenokee Adventures for being able to provide the tours out in the swamp. I wish more places could do that. But anyway, let's move on. Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge was established in 1937 as a refuge and breeding ground for migratory birds and other wildlife. Today, the refuge is approximately 407,000 acres and is the largest national wildlife refuge east of the Mississippi River. The Okefenokee is like no other place on earth where natural beauty and wilderness prevail. The Okefenokee Society, formed in 1918, promoted nationwide interest in the swamp. With the support of state and local interests and numerous conservative and scientific organizations, the federal government acquired most of the swamp for refuge purposes in 1936. Many different tribes of Native Americans called Okefenokee home for hundreds of years. By 1850, the age of the Indian in the swamp had passed. Only stories, mounds, a few artifacts, and a few names in the map remained. Between 1850 and 1900, pioneer families moved in. Now I got to flip the page again. So much information about this place, I love it. As the Native Americans disappeared, most of them settled on isolated farmsteads. A few had large houses with livestock, but most lived in small rustic cabins. The Chester homestead is still at Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge today, so you did get to see that. I was hoping I'd been able to get in there, but I couldn't, so I just took some video through the windows. In the late 1850s, W.T. Chester and his family settled on a small island on the eastern Okefenokee Swamp. They were a rugged family that had to eat what they could shoot, trap, catch, and grow on the sandy soil. Their cash crops were tobacco, sugarcane, and turpentine. They lived simply, worked hard, and played hard. The original homestead was south of the current building. The youngest Chester son built the current home in 1927, so the one you see that is built today, that is the one that was built in 1927. The house is built of yellow pine and cost $200 to build. To be honest with you, if I could build a house for $200, I would live in it, wouldn't you? Yes. That is a nice house for $200, but I'm sure it was very expensive back in the day. The house originally had only 4 rooms, and it featured an indoor kitchen. The bathroom was outside, but a bathtub was on the back porch. You got to see the bathtub. So that thing is almost 100 years old, because it's 2022 now. If it was out there in 1927, that bathtub is 95 years old. Where am I at on here? I don't know. Oh yeah. As the family grew, the house grew, and 2 additional bedrooms were added. You got to see those as well. I think I pointed that out earlier. To this day, the yard is still free of all vegetation. The reason for that was to reduce fire danger and to be able to spot snakes. Tom and Iva Chester were the last of the family to leave in 1958, but many members of the family are still involved with telling the story of their life. So we actually came to Pioneer Day a few years ago, and one of the descendants was on the porch, and there was a news crew out there interviewing him. I kind of found that fascinating because, you know, if you love a place and then it's basically taken from you, you always do want to be able to return home. And I just, I couldn't even imagine that. But, it's happened in different places in the world. It's happened here. It happened in the mountains. But then you also say, on the other hand, that if they didn't preserve these places, it would be nothing but houses at this point. And then you couldn't come and enjoy it. So, how'd you enjoy your adventure today?
It was good.
That's very good. I got the best shot of my life with that alligator. And I really do hope the video took on that.
I was very impressed with the alligators on that Peat,
Yes.
because that's the first time we have seen them on peat mounds before, but not in mating season.
Yes, it is mating season. We did not get to see a mate. However, there was a group of people that had camped overnight. They were out in the canoes, and they said that they did get to see the alligators breed this morning. And had that happen while we were here, I'm pretty sure I would have videoed it, just because I've never seen that happen before. But YouTube might have blocked that video. I don't know. We could say it was National Geographic. So, I'm out here recording stuff people want to see. But anyway, I truly do hope you enjoyed the video, and this is by far one of my most favorite places in the world. It's a place that I will always come to as long as I live. It's like one of the tour guides that we had years ago said. He said, once you come out here, it just gets in your blood, and you have to keep on coming back over and over and over again. And that's true.
Well, that's just like the tour guide we had today. He said he came out here whenever he was a young boy, and he wanted to come back. So he came back and made a job out of what he enjoyed doing.
That's what he said. That is what he said. You gotta see you're paying attention.
I pay attention to a lot of stuff.
So anyway, I think that's gonna do it. And I do have to say, I do have to thank my cousin Greg for letting us know about this place all these years ago, because other than that, I would have probably never known this place existed. But we came out here just to see what it was about, and I fell in love with it. And I think everybody that knows me knows how I feel about the Okefenokee. So it's just a special place in my heart. So until next time, thank you for watching if you did.
And you subscribe, please.
Yeah, she's begging you, please subscribe. We're up to 92 subscribers now. We need 100 before we can actually get the URL changed to YouTube/travel in the Southeast. So maybe it'll happen. But anyway, thanks for watching, and bye. You gonna say bye?
Bye.
She said bye. So bye.
I'm driving them by.